In this video, I'm going to review Bubble.io. Bubble is a platform that lets you build custom, fully connected web applications without code. That's right, you can build an entire app without writing a single line of code. It's a full stack platform, so your design, database, and all of the logic in between is housed under one roof, with industry standard tech powering it behind the scenes. So that means you don't need to worry about how to configure servers to support your application. Instead, you can get right to designing and building your app. And we've personally helped hundreds of people in our mentorship program and thousands more in our courses build their apps on Bubble. So we've seen all types of apps come to life from years and years of hands-on experience. Let's dive into the review. One of the first questions we typically get from someone interested in building on Bubble is, what's really possible on this platform? Will my idea work here on Bubble? And something you want to keep in mind is that Bubble really shines with data-driven applications. Data-driven applications. Now, that covers a wide spectrum of functionality, industries, solutions to different problems. So we've got a list here to give you a sense of what you can build on Bubble. And these are the types of functionalities and types of apps that we've seen getting built on Bubble. This is by no means the only list of things that you can do, but hopefully this gives you a better idea. For example, you can create custom marketplaces where users set up listings for products and services. They can be searched. They can pay each other either a one-time payment, deposits, right, for reservations, bookings, rentals. They can do recurring payments, all sorts of configurations that you can set up there because it's really up to you in how you design the data and how it's going to be manipulated. You can create powerful calculators, both for internal use, let's say personal fitness tracking, or within a business, if you wanted to create a custom accounting system for your all of your sales and clients and invoices that you have for your operations. You can create really sophisticated automations that connect multiple systems together so that there's seamless flow of data. You have a single source of truth in this new application that's custom to you and your team, your organization, your project, your business, whatever it is that's going to help make things easier for you to communicate with each other and streamline systems. You can create social networks, right? These applications can be highly interactive with users engaging with each other, creating comments and messages, creating posts on things, getting notifications and alerts and activity feeds to keep track of, their connections, activities in the application. This can be in a social environment, or it can be focused around a project management apps, task managers, habit trackers. Those sorts of things are absolutely doable on Bubble. You can create sophisticated application tracking systems. So think about within an HR or some kind of a recruitment environment where candidates need to submit an application for an open position, and you need to track every stage of that life cycle. Everything from the initial application, reviews with managers, answering interview questions, submitting whatever kinds of files you need, scheduling interviews or next steps with the company. It's up to you. Again, it's up to how you design that flow and the data that powers all of it. You can create really customized scheduling and booking systems as well. I mean, we see aspects of scheduling and booking happening within larger applications. We've also seen entire apps get built around specific scheduling tools. So custom availability, calendar designs, time slots, and blocked availability, right? Having multiple resources that are getting scheduled, all sorts of combinations of calendar logic and communicating between multiple people, so make sure that everybody's on the same page. Again, this is just the tip of the iceberg of what you can do on this platform. And we've seen apps built of all shapes and sizes, everything from personal use apps for journaling or habit tracking to enterprise level SaaS solutions for companies in very specific industries with unique requirements for certain operations and working with people in specific roles. So now that we've set the stage a bit on what Bubble is and what it can accomplish, let's zoom in a bit more into its actual capabilities. And we're going to start with design. Bubble's design canvas is a fully drag and drop type of interface. That's right. You don't even need a designer background in order to create beautiful looking applications on Bubble. All of the standard design tools that you would expect from any kind of a wireframing software, you're going to find here in Bubble. It also has a responsive engine built into it. So that makes it really easy for you to create designs that adapt to different screen sizes. all the way from mobile devices to laptops, tablets, and large desktop computers. There are many different tools here to help you keep things very evenly distributed, even spacing, right? And create layouts that make sense for your user. And Bubble supports a style library for your application. This makes it easy for you to keep track of all of your commonly used, your frequently used colors, the way that you want certain elements to look. So for example, if you want your buttons to always be rounded versus square, that's something that you can define in the editor so that it's much easier for you to create consistent designs between your pages and design faster, right? You don't have to go through all of that configuration over and over again. Bubble also supports designing for multiple languages. There's baked-in functionality to help you easily translate your system messages, create custom translations in addition to taking advantage of a handful of translated system messages that are already there for you. This way you can really create a global experience for your application. Bubble's visual element library covers all of the common types of components you would expect to design in an application, whether it's to serve a desktop audience or a mobile audience. And even if you don't find a specific visual element, you can always go to the plugin marketplace to access even more. And we'll talk about plugins a little later in this video. Now, there are a couple of design things that I don't think Bubble is the best for, and that's anything with heavy animation or sophisticated motion graphics. For example, if you're looking to build gaming software, this platform is really not the best for you. This is really more about data-driven applications. Now, I will say that Bubble does support lightweight animation, so if you need things to kind of slide in and out, fade in and out, flash, that sort of thing, that's fine. There are actually some built-in animations to support that kind of behavior. But again, heavy motion graphics or really sophisticated animations that you would expect to be able to build from scratch, not going to be the best for this platform. Let's talk about how Bubble handles data. Now, the first thing to know is that your data is hosted on Amazon Web Servers. This is a globally recognized infrastructure, and Bubble has taken care of all the configuration there for you, so you don't need to worry about where things are being hosted. It's just handled for you out of the box. That way, you can focus on creating the architecture of your app's database. Yes, so you are in charge of setting up your own tables, your own fields within those tables, the relationships that you're going to create to connect records to one another. Bubble doesn't know what you're building, so it's not going to make any assumptions about what you need in that database architecture. So it is under your control to put that together. On top of that, you have a lot of tools to help you create security rights around accessing that data. So there's privacy rules that you can create to grant or restrict access based on whatever kinds of conditions you want to define. And as with any platform that you're building your app on, be mindful of any potential industry regulations that your app has to stay compliant with. We'll talk about security in a little bit more detail later on in this video. You also have the option to expose an API to your app's database. You don't have to configure it. Bubble's going to do that automatically for you around the custom structure that you've designed. So if you want third-party systems to connect to your application's database, right, to retrieve that information, they can do so through this data API. So if you're familiar with relational databases, this is the kind of system that Bubble has within this component of the platform. And if that is foreign to you, that's okay. Just think of it as putting together spreadsheets, organizing your data into rows and columns of information. You have a little bit of flexibility there to help connect things to one another, to make things easier to look up and search, right? So you can query things in an efficient way so that your users can search through your data in an efficient way. And there's a lot of wonderful tools to help you move through the development much more efficiently. Now, the aspect of the platform that really ties together your designs with your database is the logic in between. In Bubble, these are called workflows, and workflows are set up through visual programming. Again, you are not writing a single line of code to bring your app to life. Workflows really work like this. If this, then that, right? If something happens, then do something else. If the user clicks on a button, then send an email. Or if the user clicks on a button, then create a record in the database and then send an email and then show an alert message to let the user know that the email was sent, right? This is the basics of putting together, stringing together logic to make your app interactive, to create data in your database, to modify and manipulate data in your database. And there's a whole host of possible actions and triggers that are available to you so that you can puzzle together the exact experience that you need in your app. This is where the learning curve can get high. But because you have so much flexibility, this is really where you can create powerful systems that are really going to solve problems for you, whether it's in your daily life, in your business, right? For an industry, for a market of people that you are a part of or that you care a lot about. Visual programming is how it all comes together. Now, I will call out a few special areas here when it comes to the logic that is helpful to know coming in. Bubble does support recurring workflows, so things that can run in a loop and also things that can run in the background. So there are server-side workflows that your users don't even need to be present for. For example, let's say you want an email to go out every single week to your managers so that they can get a recap of the stats for the company, right? So this can be set up in an automated way. Nobody needs to babysit a page to click on a button to send out that email. You can set it up so that it automatically happens. And it's completely up to you on what's the content of the email, what time of the day it's going to be sent, who it's going to be sent to. The information can be highly dynamic, so that way it changes from week to week. This is just the tip of the iceberg, okay? These scheduled workflows or these recurring types of workflows can really power robust automations, bulk operations to modify a lot of data all at once. Okay, so I wanted to call that out because that's one of the questions that we get all the time about how much can you really do? How much can we really push this system to work hard for us so that we don't have to? By the way, if this has been helpful, bookmark our free extended training over at coachingnocodeapps.com/workshop. And be sure to head there next. In that training, we'll guide you step by step through more in-depth info of the platform, and we'll also help you get started with the development of the app itself. When it comes to building your application, you'll spend most of your time in the three areas we just talked about: the design canvas, the database, and the workflows. Now, there are several components that come with the editor in general, right? The platform that I want to call out because they're really helpful to know and can really support a more efficient, long-term, scalable development of your application. The first is that your app comes built in with Workflow API and Data API. I mentioned the Data API a little bit earlier. This is really powerful if you plan to connect your app to the outside world in any way. So with Workflow API, you can have external systems trigger workflows in your app. So this is typically for app-to-app notification type of flows or automations. You can also have external systems call your Data API to retrieve data from your database. The next platform component is collaboration. So if you're building your app within a team environment, you have plenty of tools to help you work together without stepping over each other. This also works alongside Bubble's powerful version control system. So you can actually have multiple versions of your development environment, which can help you separate different builds. If certain things are under construction while other things are ready to go live, you can control those releases. You also can go back in time and revert your application to previous builds, also revert your data set back to a previous state in time. The plan that you are on will dictate how far back you can go, so you want to be mindful of that, but these controls are absolutely in place as safeguards. You can, of course, connect your application to a custom domain so that when you go live, it is on your own domain. You can also send emails from your custom domain, and that's actually tapping into one of Bubble's built-in integrations with a service provider, an email service provider called SendGrid. If you don't want to use SendGrid, that's okay. You can still connect to any other service provider you'd like through your own custom API connection. Bubble also has a built-in connection with Google location services. So if your app needs to work with maps, addresses in any way, if you want to do directions, if you want to calculate distances between things, you have a lot of capabilities there. If you want to search for addresses, find points of interest, plot things on a map, right? Lots of built-in capability that's available to you. Again, you also have control over customizing it even further by adding in your own integrations if you need. Of course, no one's going to build their app perfectly from the start without making any mistakes. So Bubble, of course, has plenty of tools to help you troubleshoot your work, to debug things if you're running into issues, and help you identify problems with the way that you've set things up. Bubble has an issue checker that will reveal things that are not set up technically correct so that you can make those corrections, and any requirements that need to be filled in order for things to work properly are surfaced to you. The issue checker is also pretty interactive, so it makes it easy for you to find those issues, especially as your app grows in size. Bubble also has a fantastic debugging tool to help you evaluate the design of your application, the any conditional logic that you have in your app. If you see something that's not behaving properly, this debugger can help you investigate and uncover what might be going on there. There's also a great server logs area that will track all activity in your application as it happens. So you can always go back and search through the logs if you need to investigate further and figure out, how things played out and compare it to what your intended behavior was. And it can help pinpoint where that happens so you can make the proper corrections from there. Now, there's an important thing to understand about the Bubble platform, and that is that Bubble apps only work on Bubble. You cannot export your Bubble code so that the application is functioning on some other system, and vice versa. You can't import code from another app building system and expect it to work on Bubble. It doesn't work that way. Bubble apps only work on Bubble. Now, you can always export your data to a variety of formats. If it's in a CSV file, if you want to get it out via API, if you want to print it, right, you can generate PDFs. However you want to do that, that is always available to you. And this leads me to the ownership of your application. Who owns your app? Short answer, you do. Bubble does not own your application. They only own the platform on which you are building your app. They also do not own your data in any way. Your data is yours. So think of it like building an e-commerce store on Shopify, a website on WordPress, writing a novel on Microsoft Word, right? None of those platforms own your intellectual property or the content that you're generating within them. They are simply the tools you are using to create your products, content, and systems. Let's talk about pricing. How much are you going to be paying Bubble to build not just the first version of your application, but future versions long term? How sustainable is this, especially as your app starts to grow? How cost effective is it going to be? Bubble prices your app through a unit of measurement called workload. Your app's workload consumption is dictated by your overall activity that you've designed into the app. Now, there's 12 different categories of activity. Not all activity is weighed the same. So some activity is a little heavier or more expensive than other activity. Some examples of activity that you can design into your app's logic include searches of your database, right? Querying everything, filters of those searches, manipulating your database, creating records, updating them, deleting them, making API calls, uploading files, running certain types of workflows. All of these will cost a certain number of workload units. And oftentimes, if you break it down to like the bare components, these are fractions of a workload unit. But of course, with, an application, there's going to be a lot of stuff coming together. So those workload units are going to add up. It is up to you to build the most efficient system you possibly can, because that will not only make a better performing app, but also keep things more cost effective for you. There are many ways to accomplish the same thing. So some of this may just be a matter of trial and error and leveraging Bubble's tools to help you track your consumption so you can see where there might be opportunities for optimization, where those heavier spots are, to see again if you can make any corrections or help slim things down. Maybe you need to restructure things to make things more efficient. It is under your control to build the best possible performing application and most cost-effective app as you can. But the way that you are priced and measured is through this workload consumption. So based on the plan that you are on with Bubble, you're going to be allocated a certain number of workload units every month. Okay, so all you want to do is stay under that number. Now, if you need to go over for whatever reason, maybe your type of app is one where there could be an unexpected spike in activity, then you'll go into overages. And at that point, it's more like a pay as you go type of system at a slightly different rate for a certain number of units that you're going over by. You're not going to get cut off from the system. It's not going to be taken offline if you're in overages. Your app's not going to slow down in any way, right? There's no throttling. The only scenario where your app could be taken offline is if you decided to disable the overages capability. Okay. And that would be if you wanted to kind of control your cost, if you have a very specific budget that you don't want to go over. But keeping those overages on will ensure that your app does stay live. Now, at the end of the day, you want to design your app so that your consumption is as predictable as possible. And you have a lot of resources to help you build an efficient app, to help you track what you're doing and how much you're consuming as you're developing, even before you go live. Bubble also gives every single app a certain number of workload units to use just free within your development environment. So you have a big playground that you can move around in and be able to see what works and what doesn't. And so when it comes to scalability, I cannot stress enough that you are the architect of this application. It is up to you to balance all of these important components so that you have a reliable, consistent, scalable application. You not only want to think about your user's experience on the front end, but also the foundation that is really supporting it behind the scenes. You need a strong database architecture that makes sense, that's going to allow you to grow if necessary. You need logic that is incredibly efficient and not bloated. You need to be mindful of your workload consumption and keep an eye out for any areas that may be heavier than they really need to be. You are the architect of all of these different components. That can be intimidating to some, but it really keeps you in the driver's seat if you are truly looking to build a custom application that is going to be precisely specific to your own needs. And it's possible. We work with non-technical entrepreneurs every single day, and they are making things happen in their app. They are bringing their ideas to life, solving problems within their daily lives, within their businesses. They are cutting out extra expenses that they would otherwise be paying other systems that don't exactly work for them, right? They are solving problems with this. And if you are committed to learning these important concepts for creating smart structures around your database, around your logic, your application will come together in a seamless way. The fact that this is a full stack platform is what really sets this apart from other no code systems. Since everything is under one roof, the logic, the designs, the database, they can all seamlessly communicate with one another. I do want to go into a few more technical details just in case you're still on the fence about whether this platform is right for you. In regards to hosting and security, Bubble applications are hosted on Amazon Web Services. You know, a lot of the internet's most popular business tools, cloud solutions, and websites are hosted on AWS as well. And so you know you're going to be in good hands. And Bubble has configured all of this for you, so you don't have to worry about it. Now, if you do need to customize where in the world your application is hosted, right? Which region. Bubble does have an enterprise plan option. You do need to reach out to them to get started with that. But that is available to you. And you do have the ability to customize that if you need. Your data is encrypted at rest. Bubble is GDPR compliant. It is also SOC 2 compliant. You have custom control over your editor privacy, your API privacy, and your data privacy. So how you give and restrict access to all of that information, not just the data or not just the front end, but literally also the back end editor to your application. So all of these tools are available for you. Now, the Bubble platform is highly extensible, which is one of my favorite parts of working with this tool. There's many ways to add extra capabilities and functionalities to your app, depending on what you need. And there's a few ways to do this. The first is through the plugin marketplace. This is a vast marketplace of plugins created mostly by the community, which is awesome to see. Bubble also has a handful of plugins in there that they've created themselves, but this thing is really growing every single day. Some plugins are free, some are premium, they're paid as a one-off payment or a subscription payment. So it just depends on what you need for your application. We've certainly found plugins that we consider to be staples. We go to all the time, but you don't always need to have a plugin added to your app. It really just depends on what you're doing. Some of these plugins will add extra workflow capabilities, extra visual elements, or connections to popular tools in the outside world. So whether it's an email service provider, a conversion tool of some kind, a financing system. I mean, there's really a lot of different categories of plugins. So, exploring that marketplace can give you a better sense of what you can add on to your editor. Now, you can also create private plugins for your app. So these don't need to be published to the marketplace, but they're just private to you. And the great thing about creating a private plugin is that you can add custom code, like actual code. If you need to inject that into your app, you do have the ability to do that. I did mention before that your app comes built in with a data API and workflow API. So, if you choose to expose those things, that helps you extend, capabilities there so that you can communicate better your data or send information through a workflow API to the outside world if you need. Bubble also has a handful of connection tools for you. So an API connection tool, if you ever want to do a custom API connection that you may not currently find in the plugin marketplace, you have the ability to customize this. I use this all the time because you have complete control over those API requests and specifically how you want those requests to be formatted. There's also a Bubble connector tool that lets you connect multiple Bubble apps together. So if you want to pass data from one Bubble app to another Bubble app, you can absolutely do that, or have one Bubble app trigger workflows in a different app. You can do that through that tool. There's also a SQL database connector tool. So if you are coming to this system with a SQL database already in place, and you just want your Bubble app to communicate with that, so that if you don't want to use the Bubble database, or if you want to use it in combination, you have the ability to do that as well. Now, I'm sure this question has been on your mind. It's certainly come up for us many, many times recently, and that is, can I connect my app to ChatGPT or other similar AI type of tools? And the answer is absolutely you can. We've actually had clients already build in integrations with ChatGPT into their own apps, and really creative ways, to generate content, to systemize different flows, to help streamline the way things are communicated, to summarize information, to help generate prompts or tasks in a really smart way based on the data that's in the application. I mean, there's really many, many ways to leverage it and integrate it into your app. And as long as the AI that you want to connect to, even if it's not ChatGPT necessarily, if it exposes an API, you are most likely good to go there. Bubble's API connector tool is set up to support all standard methods of API protocols. So if you can find the documentation for the AI, go through it, check the requirements for it, but you will usually find that it is going to follow a best practice standard, and Bubble's API connector tool will support that. We also know that Bubble has AI on their mind as well, and they're looking to incorporate it more deeply into their own editor, such as describing what you want to build and having the AI create the pages for you directly in the app editor. So it's not live quite yet, but it's on the horizon, and we're very much looking forward to seeing that. In regards to device compatibility, Bubble applications are web apps, which is great because that means they're universal. Doesn't matter what type of device you have or what operating system you're on. If you have access to a browser and an internet connection, you can access a Bubble app just like you can any other web page. And you're designing your app on a fully responsive engine, which means that Bubble has all the tools to help you ensure your layouts and your designs adapt to different screen sizes. So everything from a smartphone to a tablet, laptop, super wide monitor, you have the tools to test your designs at those different breakpoints, which is really, really helpful to make sure that no matter where your user is visiting you from, they'll be able to get a really good experience. Now, you can deliver your app to the app stores through a wrapping process. You're going to go through a third party to help you wrap your web application. It's really just converting the web app into a format that's compatible for delivering to those stores, making sure that you follow all the requirements for the Apple App Store as well as the Google Play Store. But at the end of the day, it's still more like a hybrid. You still need an internet connection to work with the app. But if it's important for you to have your app in those stores because you may expect your users to search for you or search for your type of app there, then that's a great option that is available to you. You're still going to build your web app just like you would even if you weren't going to wrap it. And then you'll go through that wrapping process after you're done building it out. Now, there's also kind of an in-between option where you can convert your Bubble web app into a progressive web app, or a PWA for short. So this does not require you to send your application to the app stores, which means you can save yourself from having to meet those, sometimes strict requirements for the app stores, but still have some native-like capabilities, such as targeted push notifications, some access to the device, such as the contacts, special alerts like offline alerts if they've lost their internet connection and showing a message for that, a custom splash page when they first open the page, or a home icon on a smartphone's, kind of icon homepage design. So it's like a little shortcut to get to the app. And yeah, if you need some kind of a hybrid with some native-like capabilities, that is an option for you. It's much lighter weight to get done. Finally, Bubble has recently announced that they are working on supporting native apps, which is very exciting. It's still very much in the early stages, but we are looking forward to seeing what happens there. As you can see, the Bubble platform offers a robust full stack solution for creating data-driven, customizable, scalable applications from start to finish without writing a single line of code. We've been using it for years with our own clients who are non-technical, and we haven't seen anything else come close to it. So it's our number one recommended tool. Now, if you're looking to get started, I have a few tips for you. The first is, don't let this intimidate you. Yes, there's a learning curve here, but you can't let this scare you. I promise you're not going to break the internet. You just need to create an account, open up your first app, and get comfortable with the interface. Just play around with it, see how that canvas works for the front end design, the drag and drop visual elements. Start to put together some data tables so you can see how spreadsheets of information come together, and put together some simple workflows. So again, you can understand how the logic brings things to life. Now, we usually tell our clients that you have to come into this from a programmer's mindset. Just because it's no code doesn't mean click, 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 now I have an app, right? This is very logic based. And this is typically where the learning curve comes in for most people. You have to instruct Bubble with every interaction you want it to carry out for you. It's not going to know what you're building. It's not going to assume anything for you. And that often surprises people, how much more there actually is to building an application from scratch. You have to tell it everything. The trade-off is that you are in complete control over what it is you're building. You are not boxed in to a templated set of features or even a templated design. There are no guardrails. It is up to you to create proper security rules to make sure that it's stable long-term with higher volumes of usage. So it's a balance in every aspect of the application, both for what the user sees on the front end and also all the stuff that happens behind the scenes. So just be mindful of that. One of the best approaches that I like to suggest here, for if you just don't even know where to get started, is to start with a database. Okay, configure your tables, configure your fields as best as you possibly can. Then put together some of your layouts in the front end design so that you can start to see some of your test data on those pages, even if things are created a little bit more manually to start, right? So you start to put together some wireframes and then connect the two with the workflows: database, front end design, and then the workflows. And you'll typically jump between those three the bigger your app gets, kind of going back and forth. But if you don't know where to start and you're starting completely fresh, start with the database. I promise that is something that is going to dictate so much of how your app comes together. It's one of the most important parts. Now, if you're looking to dive even deeper into this whole system, learning more about the platform, head over to our free extended training over at coachingnocodeapps.com/workshop. We'll take you through step by step, go through things in more detail. I can't wait to see you there. Head over there now, coachingnocodeapps.com/workshop. Thanks for watching.